Yes. I'm excited about today, Jen. Like, you and I both had such a strong prompting to talk about this from
Yes.
spirit.
Yes, we did.
Strong.
Well, and
Yeah.
even when so to get started, is like we heard about the witch wound when
Mm-hmm.
we were working with Dana on our podcast, all about healthy emotions. And as she mentioned the witch wound, you and I both just like our whole body, like we just got chills and it just
Oh,
like called to us
yes. Mm-hmm.
so much. And I feel like there's so much to encompass in all of this, and especially when it comes to gifts of the spirit, because during the Aquarian age, like so many people are being like arising and being called to explore their spiritual gifts. But I also feel
Mm-hmm.
collectively that this witch wound, like the blueprint of it is still in our system. It's still there. So it's like it can kind of be a heavy balance when it comes to spiritual gifts as well as battling the witch wound.
Oh,
Um,
totally. I'm
yeah.
trying to
So
remember what was the name of that author.
it's called
It's
Witch.
called just Witch. Yeah.
Yeah, Witch by Lisa Lister. And it's so amazing. And seriously, like listening to it, even just the first few words, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so what
Mm-hmm.
everyone is needing. And so, like, what I've been experiencing. I love the fact that she talks about what a witch is because, we think about this and we think about it as in the old, like, we think about the movies, the olden days where they're burning people or doing wicked spells on people, and that's not necessarily always accurate when it comes to the witch wound. So do you want to talk about that a little bit to kind of give a little
Oh man. Yes, it's
backstory?
way misunderstood. Way misunderstood. It's so sad to think about historically how men and women, it wasn't just women, were burnt at the stake or hung for helping others heal themselves with herbs or help with midwifery.
Yeah, that was a big one.
Yes, or to do sacred ceremony to help release emotional trauma and wounds.
Yeah.
Um, it was so misunderstood. It was so rooted in healing and love. And the fact that organized religion got in the way of people's healing paths. And it really was about power. It was about the imbalance of power, the misuse of power in
Right.
our on our planet. And this is historically speaking, humans have been doing this since the beginning of time, using every excuse known to man and unknown to man to be harmful and hurtful and to express um, violence, either
Yeah.
verbally or physically, to others. This has been happening. This is something that is in the human nature that we are transmuting and rising above, but it's something that we need to be aware of, especially historically speaking, so we don't repeat the same mistakes over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And we're at a time with the Aquarian age where anywhere where there has been injustice or abuse of power, and those have suffered in those particular areas, whether it be race or gender or spirituality or beliefs or whatever, all of that is just coming to the surface and being called for healing and love right now.
Absolutely.
And so I feel like this is really coming to the forefront, because another thing that happens as you go through this awakening process is that you start to come back into remembrance of who you are as a multi-dimensional being,
Yeah.
and your gifts of spirit start to strengthen. And so when your gifts of spirit start to strengthen, when your clairsentience or your clairvoyance or clairaudience or claircognizance or whatever it is strengthening, every single person that I have come into contact has to face this witch wound that Lisa
Yes.
Lister is talking about, that she coined this term, which is so brilliant. But every one of those people have had to face this wound because they're like, I don't want to be judged. I don't want to be ostracized. I don't want to be casted out of my family or perceived as weird or
Yeah,
different. And all of the things that this wound brings up for us gets
absolutely.
confronted.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah.
It's so interesting too, because you and I both have experienced this time and time
Oh,
again.
yes.
As you know, we've heard on both of our stories from the two previous podcasts, but
Mm-hmm.
also it's just like, it's so interesting to see how twisted that things can become, because
Mm-hmm.
ultimately, as we've discovered many, many, many times, is that our innate essence of who we are is connected to spirit, is that divine
Yes.
infinite source, and connecting into spirit, connecting into our gifts, being able to help heal energetically. Like that's part of
Mm-hmm.
what is naturally who we are.
Yes.
And all of a sudden, when we're starting to be awakened into our heart center, really coming back into the Aquarian age, it's like all of a sudden the things that we naturally are drawn to are opening up, but society
Mm-hmm.
kind of claims it as bad and wrong, or we view it that way. I feel like it's definitely opening up to a new space where a lot of people are being opened in these areas, which is
Oh,
so, so,
yes.
so exciting. And one thing that I think is important to understand too is I feel like when I deliver messages, the way that this has come forward a lot is if you were to like close your eyes and have one of your loved ones walk into the room, you could feel their energy. You could, I don't know, I'm not a mom, but I feel like it could be easily understood that maybe when one kid walks in, you can feel who it is before you actually know who it
Mm-hmm.
is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Before you see them. And so let's say you're going to a party and you walk into a room, and before you walk into the room, let's say the hostess and another person got in a huge fight and they were yelling at each other, right? You could walk into the room and you could palpably feel that energy that was just released into the room. And a lot of people who
Mm-hmm.
are being awakened into their heart center are very aware of that energy and of that space. And so collectively, that's like a blueprint. It's like an energetic blueprint, and it's in Mother Earth's. I like to call it like Mother Earth's aura, because we all have an aura.
Yes.
Mother Earth has an aura,
Mm-hmm.
and things can get stuck in the aura. And I think the witch wound is one that's getting stuck in the aura, that's
Oh,
trying to
for
be
sure.
released. And so knowing that, like, because there are hundreds, if not thousands, of people in the past who have experienced being rejected for that natural innate ability. And that's energetically being stuck in the blueprint. It's there from
Mm-hmm.
many different people. So it's like walking into that room with fighting times like 100,000, if not more, obviously. Right. And
Oh,
so it's
yes.
very intense. And that could be, you know, whether or not someone believes in past lives, that could have been maybe what they've experienced in a past life, or even ancestrals, like our ancestors. It could be passed down in the genetics that are there. And so, one way or another, it affects a lot of us. And I think it's so important that we talk about it
I
and
think
not
it
make it
affects
wrong.
everyone, not just a
Yeah,
lot of us,
that's true.
because that is something that I've been even discovering as we just even reflecting on this more. I thought it's not just myself or the students that I've been going through it. Like, even my husband, like as I was coming out and talking about my gifts and helping others, he had to go process his own witch wound. I'm worried about if I was going to be ostracized or if someone was going to judge me and wanting to protect me. And because those are wounds that he also feels, and that collective energy of the witch wound, this is, like you said, I think it's lodged in the collective
Yeah,
consciousness of everyone because of these memories that are held within the Akashic, that are held within our DNA, through our families and also through the Akashic records. So at some point, everyone, I think, is going to have to confront this because it's part of the awakening, is this reconnection and remembrance of who you are, which means that you have access to the wisdom of the whole universe inside of you. You don't
yeah,
have to go outside of yourself to connect with the divine that is inside of you.
yeah,
But when there's been abuse of power, the way power can manipulate or control is to sever you from your own personal power, which
Yeah.
is that connection to the divine, and make you question or not trust yourself and say you need to go outside of yourself in order to connect with the divine. You can't trust yourself. How do you know you're not being tempted by
Yeah.
this dark force or
Oh,
this energy?
that is huge.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like
Yeah.
every single person is going to have to come up to this because it needs healing,
Yeah.
because you are the manifestation. I am the manifestation of the divine in form. We are children of our creator of all things. There is no
Yes.
greater source of wisdom or power that is outside of us that we don't carry within us. So
Absolutely.
if that were the case, then those who want to control or manipulate you, they're like, well, where is the control? Because if you can create the life you want, if you can connect with spirit and the divine and heal and all of that, then how do I control? And I think it goes, a misuse of power has gone back, for thousands of years, but the last 3,000
Absolutely.
years has been the abuse of the patriarchal system. And I don't want to bash patriarchy. I'm not here to bash males. This is something we all have struggled with and have experienced pain from,
Yeah.
because we carry the masculine and the feminine within us. But there is an abuse of energy here, just like there's a divine masculine and a divine feminine that we all carry within us.
Mm-hmm.
There's also the abuse of the masculine and the abuse of the feminine.
Yeah. I feel like we're kind of lately, I feel like there's also a pendulum, like we've talked about
Mm-hmm.
before, is like, it's like very much so one way right now, but knowing that, honoring that there is amazing masculine and feminine, I think is also what we're being called to see, is like, yes, we're speaking up more, the women are, but also it's like we need to find a healthy, not we
Balance.
need to, but a healthy balance is being called into the energy space, because we can't just be one way or another. It's like we're here to
Right.
adapt and to learn and to grow. And so I think
Yeah.
that's very powerful too.